Hi, it's Miss Lisa from St. Paris Public Library. Welcome back to Just Before Bed, and we're going to start in on our book, Pippi, Longstocking. We're going to continue on in there from where we left off last night. Chapter 3, Pippi plays tag with some policemen. It soon became known throughout the little town that a 9-year-old girl was living all by herself in Villa Kula, and all the ladies and gentlemen in town thought it would never do. All children must have someone to advise them, and all children must go to school to learn the multiplication tables. So the ladies and gentlemen decided that the little girl in Villa Kula must immediately be placed in a children's home. One lovely afternoon, Pippi had invited Tommy and Annika over for afternoon coffee, and this is a really hard word, Karkor. She had spread the party out on the front steps. It was so sunny and beautiful there, and the air was filled with the fragrance of the flowers in Pippi's garden. Mr. Nilsson climbed around on the porch railing, and every now and then the horse stuck out his head so that he'd be invited to have a cookie. "Oh, isn't it glorious to be alive?" said Pippi, stretching out her legs as far as she could reach. Just at that moment, 2 police officers in full uniform came in through the gate. "Hooray," said Pippi. "This must be my lucky day, too. Policemen are the very best things I know, next to rhubarb pudding," and with her face beaming, she went to meet them. "Is this the girl who has moved into Villa Kula?" asked one of the policemen. "Quite the contrary," said Pippi. "This is a tiny little auntie who lives on the 3rd floor at the other end of town." She said that only because she wanted to have a little fun with the policemen, but they didn't think it was funny at all. They said she shouldn't be such a smarty, and then they went on to tell her that some nice people in the town were arranging for her to get into a children's home. "I already have a place in a children's home," said Pippi. "What?" asked the policeman. "Has it been arranged already then?" "What children's home?" "This one," said Pippi haughtily. "I am a child, and this is my home. Therefore it is a children's home, and I have room enough here, plenty of room." "Dear child," said the policeman, smiling, "you don't understand. You must get into a real children's home and have someone look after you." Is one allowed to bring horses to your children's home?" "No, of course not," said the policeman. "That's what I thought," said Pippi sadly. "Well, what about monkeys?" "Of course not. You ought to realize that." "Well then," said Pippi, "you'll have to get kids for your children's home somewhere else. I certainly don't intend to move there." "But don't you understand that you must go to school?" "Why?" "To learn things, of course." "What sort of things?" asked Pippi. "All sorts," said the policeman. "Lots of useful things. The multiplication table, for instance." "I have got along fine without any plutification tables for 9 years," said Pippi, "and I guess I'll get along without it from now on, too." "Yes, but just think how embarrassing it will be for you to be so ignorant. Imagine when you grow up and somebody asks you what the capital of Portugal is and you can't answer." "Oh, I can answer all right," said Pippi. "I'll answer like this. If you are so bound and determined to find out what the capital of Portugal is, then for goodness sakes write directly to Portugal and ask." "Yes, you don't have to, you don't, yes, but don't you think that you would be sorry not to know it yourself?" "Oh, probably," said Pippi. "No doubt I should lie awake nights and wonder, what in the world is the capital of Portugal? But one can't be having fun all the time," she continued, bending over and standing on her hands for a change. "For that matter, I've been in Lisbon with my papa," she added, still standing upside down, for she could talk that way too. But then one of the policemen said that Pippi certainly didn't need to think she could do just as she pleased. She must come to the children's home, and immediately. He went up to her and took hold of her arms, but Pippi freed herself quickly, touching him lightly, and said, "Tag." Before he could wink an eye, she was climbing up on the porch railing and from there onto the balcony above the porch. The policemen couldn't quite see themselves getting up the same way, and so they rushed into the house and up the stairs, but by the time they reached the balcony, Pippi was halfway up the roof. She climbed up the shingles almost as if she were a little monkey herself. In a moment, she was up on the ridge pole, and from there jumped easily to the chimney. Down on the balcony stood the 2 policemen, scratching their heads. and on the lawn stood Tommy and Annika, staring at Pippi. "Isn't it fun to play tag?" cried Pippi. "And weren't you nice to come over? It certainly is my lucky day today, too." After the policeman had stood there for a while wondering what to do, they went and got a ladder, leaned it against one of the gables of the house, and then climbed up, first one policeman, then the other, to get Pippi down. They looked a little scared when they climbed out on the ridgepole and, carefully balancing themselves, went step by step towards Pippi. "Don't be scared," cried Pippi. "There's nothing to be afraid of. It's just fun." When the policemen were a few steps away from Pippi, down she jumped from the chimney and, screeching and laughing, ran along the ridgepole to the opposite gable. A few feet from the house stood a tree. "Now I'm going to dive," she cried, and jumped right down into the green crown of the tree, caught hold of a branch, swung back and forth a while, then let herself fall to the ground. Quick as a wink, she dashed around to the other side of the house and took away the ladder. The policemen had looked a little foolish when Pippi jumped, but they looked even more so when they had balanced themselves backwards along the ridgepole and were about to climb down the ladder. At first, they were very angry at Pippi, who stood on the ground looking up at them, and they told her in no uncertain terms to get the ladder and be quick about it, and she would get something she wasn't looking for. "Why are you so cross at me?" asked Pippi reproachfully. "We're just playing tag, aren't we?" The policeman thought a while, and at last one of them said, "Oh, come on, won't you be a good girl and put the ladder back so we can get down?" "Of course I will," said Pippi, and put the ladder back instantly. "And when you get down, we can all drink coffee and have a happy time." But the policemen were certainly tricky, because the minute they were down on the ground again, they pounced on Pippi and cried, "Now you'll get it, you little brat." "Oh, no, I'm sorry. I haven't time to play any longer," said Pippi, "but it was fun." Then she took hold of the policemen by their belts and carried them down the garden path, out through the gate and onto the street. There she set them down, and it was quite some time before they were ready to get up again. "Wait a minute," she cried, and ran into the kitchen and came back with 2 cookie hearts. "Would you like a taste?" she asked. "It doesn't matter that they are a little burned, does it?" Then she went back to Tommy and Annika, who stood there wide-eyed and just couldn't get over what they had seen. And the policeman hurried back to the town and told all the ladies and gentlemen that Pippi wasn't quite fit for a children's home. They didn't tell that they had been up on the roof, and the ladies and gentlemen decided that it would be best after all to let Pippi remain in Villa Villacula, and if she wanted to go to school, she could make the arrangements herself. But Pippi and Tommy and Annika had a very pleasant afternoon. They went back to their interrupted coffee party. Pippi stuffed herself with 14 cookies and then said, They weren't what I meant by real policemen. No, sirree. Although too much talk about children's homes and pluffification and Lisbon." Afterwards, she lifted the horse down on the ground, and they rode on him, all 3. At first, Annika was afraid and didn't want to, but when she saw what fun Tommy and Pippi were having, she let Pippi lift her up on the horse's back. The horse trotted round and round in the garden, and Tommy sang, "Here comes the Swedes with the clang and a bang." When Tommy and Annika had gone to bed that night, and Tommy said, "Annika, don't you think it's good that Pippi's moved here?" "Oh, yes," said Annika. "I don't even remember what we used to play before she came. Do you?" "Oh, sure, we played croquet and things like that," said Annika. "But it's lots more fun with Pippi around, I think, and with horses and things." Chapter 4. Pippi Goes to School. Of course, Tommy and Annika went to school. Each morning at 8 o'clock, they trotted off hand in hand, swinging their school bags. At that time, Pippi was usually grooming her horse or dressing Mr. Nilsson in his little suit, or else she was taking her morning exercise, which meant turning 43 somersaults in a row. Then she would sit down on the kitchen table and utterly happy, drink a large cup of coffee and eat a piece of bread and cheese. Tommy and Annika always looked longingly towards Villa Villacula as they started off to school. They would much rather have gone to play with Pippi, If only Pippi had been going to school too. That would have been something else again. Just think what fun we could have on the way home from school, said Tommy. Yes, and on the way to school too, said Annika. The more they thought about it, the worse they felt to think that Pippi did not go to school, and at last they determined to try and persuade her to begin. You can't imagine what a nice teacher we have, said Tommy artfully to Pippi one afternoon when he and Annika had come for a visit to Villa Villacula after they had finished their homework. If you only knew what fun it is in school, Annika added. I'd die if I couldn't go to school. Pippi sat on a hassock, bathing her feet in a tub. She said nothing, but just wiggled her toes for a while, so that the water splashed around everywhere. You don't have to stay so very long, continued Tommy, just until 2 o'clock. Yes, and besides, we get Christmas vacation and Easter vacation and summer vacation, said Annika. Pippi bit her big toe thoughtfully, but still said nothing. Suddenly, as if she had made some decision, she poured all the water out on the kitchen floor so that Mr. Nilsson, who sat near her playing with a mirror, got his pants absolutely soaked. It's not fair, said Pippi sternly, without paying any attention to Mr. Nilsson's puzzled air about his wet pants. It is absolutely unfair. I don't intend to stand it. What's the matter now? In 4 months it will be Christmas, and then you'll have Christmas vacation. But what'll I get? Pippi's voice sounded sad. No Christmas vacation, not even the tiniest bit of a Christmas vacation, she complained. Something will have to be done about that. Tomorrow morning, I'll begin school. So she's going to start school so she gets a Christmas vacation. Tommy and Annika clapped their hands with delight. Hurrah! We'll wait for you outside our gate at 8 o'clock. Oh no, said Pippi, I can't begin as early as that. And besides, I'm going to ride to school. And ride she did. At exactly at 10 o'clock the next day, she lifted her horse off the porch, and a little later all the people in town ran to their windows to see what horse it was that was running away. That is to say, they thought he was running away, but it was only Pippi in a bit of a hurry to get to school. She galloped wildly into the schoolyard, jumped off the horse, tied him to a tree, and burst into the schoolroom with such a noise and a clatter that Tommy and Annika and all their classmates jumped in their seats. Hi there, cried Pippi, waving her big hat. Did I get here in time for pluffification? Tommy and Annika had told their teachers that a new girl named Pippi Longstocking was coming, and the teacher had already heard about Pippi in the little town. As she was a very pleasant teacher, she had decided to do all she could do to make Pippi happy in school. Pippi threw herself down on a vacant bench without having been invited to do so, but the teacher paid no attention to her heedless way. She simply said in a very friendly voice, Welcome to school, little Pippi. I hope that you will enjoy yourself here and learn a great deal. Yes, and I hope I get Christmas vacation, said Pippi. That is the reason I've come. It's only fair, you know. If you would first tell me your whole name, said the teacher, then I'll register you in school. My name is Pippalata Delicatessa Window Shade Macrament Ephraim's daughter Longstocking, daughter of Captain Ephraim Longstocking, formerly the terror of the sea, now a cannibal king. Pippi is really only a nickname because Papa thought that Pippalata was too long to say. Indeed, said the teacher. Well then, we shall call you Pippi too. But now, she continued, suppose we test you a little and see what you know. You are a big girl and no doubt know a great deal already. Let us begin with arithmetic. Pippi, can you tell me what 7 and 5 are? Pippi, astonished and dismayed, looked at her and said, Well, if you don't know that yourself, you needn't think I'm going to tell you. All the children stared in horror at Pippi, and the teacher explained that one couldn't answer that way in school. I beg your pardon, said Pippi contritely. I didn't know that. I won't do it again. No, let us hope not, said the teacher. And now I will tell you that 7 and 5 are 12. See that, said Pippi. You knew it yourself. Why are you asking then? The teacher decided to act as if nothing unusual were happening and went on with her examination. Well now, Pippi, how much do you think 8 and 4 are? Oh, about 67, hazarded Pippi. Of course not, said the teacher. 8 and 4 are 12. Well now, really, my dear little woman, said Pippi, that is carrying things too far. You just said that 7 and 5 are 12. There should be some rhyme and reason to things even in school. Furthermore, if you are so childishly interested in that foolishness, why don't you sit down in the corner by yourself and do arithmetic and leave us alone so we can play tag? I think she's going to get in trouble at school. The teacher decided there was no point in trying to teach Pippi any more arithmetic. She began to ask the children the arithmetic questions. Can Tommy answer this one, she asked. If Lisa has 7 apples, hey, that's my name. If Lisa has 7 apples and Axel has 9 apples, how many apples do they have together? Yes, you tell Tommy, Pippi interrupted, and tell me too, if Lisa gets a stomachache and Axel gets more stomachache, whose fault is it, and where did they get hold of the apples in the first place? The teacher tried to pretend that she hadn't heard and turned to Annika. Now, Annika, here's an example for you. Gustav was with his schoolmates on a picnic. He had a quarter when he started out and 7 cents when he got home. How much did he spend? Yes, indeed, said Pippi. And I also want to know why he was so extravagant and if it was pop he bought and if he washed his ears properly before he left home. The teacher decided to give up arithmetic altogether. She thought maybe Pippi would prefer to learn to read, so she took out a pretty little card with a picture of an ibex on it. In front of the ibex's nose was the letter I. Now, Pippi, she said briskly, you'll see something jolly. You see here an ibex, and the letter in front of this ibex is called I. That I'll never believe, said Pippi. I think it looks exactly like a straight line with a little fly speck over it. But what I'd really like to know is, what has the ibex to do with the fly speck? The teacher took out another card with a picture of a snake on it and told Pippi that the letter on that was an S. Speaking of snakes, said Pippi, I'll never, ever forget the time I had a fight with a huge snake in India. You can't imagine what a dreadful snake it was. 14 yards long and mad as a hornet, and every day he ate up 5 Indians and then 2 little children for dessert. And one time he came and wanted me for dessert, and he wound himself around me. Oh, but I've been around a bit, I said, and I hit him in the head, bang, and then he hissed, and then I hit him again, and bingo, he was dead. And indeed, so that is the letter S. Most remarkable. Pippi had to stop to get her breath, and the teacher, who had now begun to think that Pippi was an unruly and troublesome child, decided that the class should have drawing for a while. Surely Pippi could sit still and be quiet and draw, thought the teacher. She took out paper and pencils and passed them out to the children. Now you may draw whatever you wish, she said, and sat down at her desk and began to correct homework. In a little while she looked up to see how the drawing was going. All the children sat looking at Pippi, who lay flat on the floor, drawing to her heart's content. But Pippi, said the teacher impatiently, why in the world aren't you drawing on your paper? I filled that long ago. There isn't enough room. There isn't room enough for my whole horse on the little snip of paper, said Pippi. Just now I'm working on his front legs, but when I get to his tail, I guess I'll have to go out in the hall. The teacher thought hard for a while. Suppose instead we all sing a little song, she suggested. All the children stood up by their seats except Pippi. She stayed where she was on the floor. You go ahead and sing, she said. I'll rest myself a while. Too much learning breaks even the healthiest. But now the teacher's patience came to an end. She told all the children to go out into the yard so she could talk to Pippi alone. When the teacher and Pippi were alone, Pippi got up and walked to the desk. Do you know what, she said. It was awfully jolly to come to school to find out what it was like. But I don't think I care about going to school anymore. Christmas vacation or no Christmas vacation. There's altogether too many apples and ibexes and snakes and things like that. Makes me dizzy in the head. I hope that you, teacher, won't be sorry. But the teacher said she certainly was sorry, most of all because Pippi wouldn't behave decently, and that any girl who acted as badly as Pippi did wouldn't be allowed to go to school, even if she wanted to, ever. So, have I behaved badly? Asked Pippi, much astonished. Goodness, I didn't know that, she added, and looked very sad. And nobody could look as sad as Pippi when she was sad. She stood silent for a while, and then she said in a trembling voice, You understand, teacher, don't you, that when you have a mother who's an angel and a father who is a cannibal king, and when you have sailed on the ocean all your whole life, then you don't know just how to behave in school with all the apples and ibexes. Then the teacher said she understood and didn't feel annoyed with Pippi any longer, and maybe Pippi could come back to school when she was a little older. Pippi positively beamed with delight. I think you are awfully nice, teacher, and here is something for you. Out of her pocket, Pippi took a lovely little gold watch and laid it on the desk. The teacher said she couldn't possibly accept such a valuable gift from Pippi, but Pippi replied, You've got to take it, otherwise I'll come back again tomorrow, and that would be a pretty how do you do. Then Pippi rushed out to the schoolyard and jumped on her horse. All the children gathered around to pat the horse and see her off. You ought to know about the schools in Argentina, said Pippi, looking down at the children. That's where you should go. Easter vacation begins 3 days after Christmas vacation ends, and when Easter vacation is over, there are 3 days, and then it's summer vacation. Summer vacation ends on the 1st of November, and then you have a tough time until Christmas vacation begins on November 11th. But you can stand that because there are at least no lessons. It is strictly against the law to have lessons in Argentina. Once in a while, it happens that some Argentinian kids sneak into a closet and sit there studying a lesson, but it's just too bad for him and his mother finds him. Arithmetic, they don't have it at all in the schools. If there is any kid who knows what 7 and 5 are, he has to stand in the corner all day. That is, if he's foolish enough to let the teacher know that he knows. They have reading on Friday, and then only if they have some books, which they never have. But what do they do in school? Asked one little boy. Eat caramels, said Pippi decidedly. There's a long pipe that goes from a caramel factory nearby directly into the schoolroom, and caramels keep shooting out of it all day long, so the children have all they can do to eat them up. Yes, but what does the teacher do? Asked one little girl. Takes the paper off the caramels for the children, of course, said Pippi. You didn't suppose they did it themselves, did you? Hardly. They don't even go to school themselves. They send their brothers. Pippi waved her big hat. So long, kids, she cried gaily. Now you won't see me for a while, but always remember that how many apples Axel had or you'll be sorry. With a ringing laugh, Pippi rode out through the gate so wildly that the pebbles whirled around the horse's hooves and the window panes rattled in the schoolhouse. My goodness, she knew how to tell a story, didn't she? I'll see you tomorrow for another couple chapters of Pippi Longstocking.